This is a space for collaborative leaders who are done choosing between people and performance. They're ready to build healthier cultures, lead with emotional resilience, and redefine what sustainable leadership looks like in the real world.
Welcome to the Shine Leadership Advantage, where we explore how women leaders can leverage their personal growth to build happy, healthy, and high-performing cultures without the burnout. I'm your host, Jennifer Cavender, executive coach and consultant. And as someone who spent 20 years as a CPA, motivated by other people's desires for me, I'm now passionate about showing leaders how to leverage joy for better results and less stress. In partnering with Debbie Prediger, founder of the Be Extraordinary Women's Network and the creator of the Shine framework, I discovered that the Shine principles and the importance of personal growth are foundational to our own leadership coaching and the principles that I teach and the success of my clients. If you're new here, go back and listen to episode 0, where I interviewed Debbie Prediger about why this conversation is so important now and why she asked me to host it. Today, I'm here with Cindi Diiorio to talk about growing through what you're going through. Through the lens of the Shine principles, Cindi has shared with me that the topic of healing has been most impactful in her journey and what she now focuses on in her current endeavor. Cindi spent 35 years in education, spanning roles as a teacher, a divisional leader, the head of a school, and including 7 years in a corporate setting. She built her legacy on developing both students and adults who serve them. While her heart was always rooted in the classroom, she discovered that her greatest impact came through coaching and empowering others to lead with confidence, purpose, and care. Cindi has guided teams to transform school communities, moving them from at-risk to thriving, high-demand environments through her deep belief in the power of your thoughts and beliefs. Cindi now channels her experience into multiple roles, which include founding the DIY, a personal management concierge service designed to bring back balance to people's lives by supporting the demands of work, home, and you. So, welcome to the stage, Cindi.
Hello. Thank you, Jennifer, for the introduction. Thanks for having me on today.
You're welcome. I'm so happy to have you. We met a few years ago while you were in a previous role. And so tell the audience sort of the 2-minute version of how you came to do what you're doing now.
Yeah. So, building on what you said, what really shaped my journey wasn't just the roles that I held, it was what I learned all along the way. Very early on, I realized that success, whether in a school or any other organization, has very little to do with systems and everything that runs on a daily basis, but it has everything in the world to do with people. When people feel seen, supported, and believed in, they rise. And that became the foundation of how I led. Over time, I found myself drawn more and more to developing other people, coaching leaders, building strong teams, helping shift mindsets. Mindset is everything. It's the difference between staying stuck and stepping into something greater. I've watched that play out over and over again, both professionally and personally. Honestly, that's what led me to where I am now. I reached a point where I felt that this pull to serve people in a more direct, day to day way, not just in their professional roles, but in their actual daily lives. Because what I kept seeing across the board was that people are overwhelmed. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
They're carrying so much, trying to manage work, home, and everything in between, and it's just exhausting. So now, through my work with DIY, I come alongside people as a true partner. I help take things off their plate so they can breathe again, so they can focus on what actually matters most to them. And in a lot of ways, it's the same work that I've always done. It's still supporting people, creating space for them to thrive, and helping them become the best version of themselves. It's just leadership in a different way.
I really love this, and it gives me chills because it's so much in alignment with what we do in the Shine Circle. As I was serving organizations and corporations as a CPA for many years, we always focused on leadership, on what we could do in the workplace and what programs we could create and policies and procedures we can create to help create a positive culture and one that was productive. But what I hear you say is really about your own personal life and looking at what holistically is presenting as the burnout and the overwhelm. Because often, I was just speaking with a client this morning, it's not the things that we're doing or things that we're missing in the workplace, it's that we're holding so much all at once, right?
And I think you and I talked about that in a recent conversation where I was telling you I had reached a point where I just couldn't do anymore. I was the leader. How could I be saying that? And it was disappointing to me. So I think we all experience that. I think we all go through things and we try to keep going, but we got to take care of ourselves. That's fundamental to being a good leader.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about this idea of growing through what you're going through, because you've experienced this probably more than one time in your career as a leader.
Unfortunately, but fortunately as well, I believe that, first of all, we all pray for growth, right? Growth rarely arrives to us dressed as opportunity. Usually it shows up first as disruption. The women who grow are not the ones who have avoided difficulty. They're the ones who have decided not to waste it. So, something I've always felt deep in my heart and soul, it comes back from my teaching days, is I used to tell my students long ago, long before the age of Google Maps, I remember telling them, don't ever stop and ask someone for directions to get somewhere that hasn't been where they're going. How would they know how best to direct you if they've never been there themselves? So I always like to start out kind of validating why I feel as if I am someone who has an authority on teaching people to grow through what they go through, which is one of my coaching topics that I speak on quite often. So, if you don't mind, I might just share a few of the bullet points with you and with the audience here of some of the things personally and professionally that I've encountered so that I can show you how my 6 strategies, my 6 bullet points I can give you helped me to
Yeah,
better.
absolutely. I mean, I think this is a topic that we do hear about, right? Like we should be
Mhm.
using our challenges to grow, but we don't always know how. So please share with us your method.
Okay. So some of the things that I guess I will share first to validate myself is I've been divorced. My husband was unfaithful. I was engaged again after him, and that fiance was unfaithful, luckily, before we married. I've been through child custody battle and actually lost. At the time, I've been through a miscarriage. 2 of my 3 pregnancies were traumatic births, one of which I was told to terminate at 20 weeks. That child was a child who, at the age of 7, was raped. I have been placed in turnaround school situations 3 times in my careers, and a turnaround school situation means that the school is about to close. It's going under, it's not doing well, it needs someone to come and rescue it. So, I've been placed in those situations 3 times. I survived COVID shutdown running a school in Chicago. I've survived debt galore, skin cancer, multiple surgeries, and then in the last few years, I've survived firing 2 teachers for inappropriate relationships with students, loss of 2 students to suicide, loss of students to car accidents, a heart issue, loss of friends, the same thing, suicide, accidents, health issues, loss of family members to the same, and I've lost my job twice in the last 2 years. And I didn't go grow through these things because they happened. I grew because I decided to face each of these situations with the mindset that beautiful flowers always begin as ugly seeds covered up in messy soil. So I was not going to let these things interfere with my growth. And I still, in all of these situations that I gave you just now, I was working full time as a leader. And that's where I told you earlier I felt bad because I felt like I had to kind of hide it and disguise it and not deal with myself in these situations because they needed me to lead. And boy, was I wrong. If you don't mind, I'll just move into some of those coaching points and we can stop at each one if you have questions or comments. The first coaching point that I usually utilize here is that growth is not automatic. It is a choice. Hardship does not guarantee growth. Reflection does. Hardship is automatic. Growth is intentional. So I got to the point where I knew I could not control my storm, but I could definitely control how I responded during that storm.
And it's so consistent with actually the first principle in the Shine Circle principles, because we talk about self awareness and really becoming aware of how you're showing up.
Sure. Yeah. I found out that I needed to schedule reflection time just like I scheduled any other meeting. I needed to seek perspective from people. I never wanted to seek sympathy. I saw pain as a teacher. Now, no one wants to enroll in that teacher's class, right? Who wakes up one day and says, "Oh, today I want to hurt." But adversity gives us raw material and reflection turns it into wisdom. So, yes, definitely
Mm,
feel like that aligns with a lot of what I see with Shine.
yes.
Bullet point number 2 is you have to reframe the narrative. We can often narrate hardship as failure, but why wouldn't we think of it as refinement
Mm,
instead? So your setback may actually be your set up for clarity. So instead of saying like, "Why is this happening to me and why now?" Replace that question with, "What is this developing in me?" Right? Resilience is not toughness, it's adaptability.
beautiful.
The next one, bullet point 3 is identify beyond your titles. Women in professional spaces often anchor identity to role, but roles can change, character carries on. So asking themselves, who am I without my title? Who am I without this position? If my title changed tomorrow, would my confidence collapse? Leadership's not the position at all. Influence survives transitions. So confidence can grow through challenges, like we've already said. And we just have to look at all the other things we are other than what we are in that title, right?
That's so good. Tell me more.
All right. So, bullet point number 4, growth requires discomfort, is what I always tell people. And we talk about how muscles will grow under resistance. We go to the gym, we work out, we know we have to use weights. Leaders do the same. Leaders grow under resistance. So, having those hard conversations, accepting those unexpected changes that occur, seeing closed doors and realizing that they're only closed for now, or
Mm,
there's other doors that are already opened. You don't always have to try to force open those that are closed. I guess one of the things that I like to say here is that comfort builds routine, discomfort builds capacity.
mm.
So you have to learn to kind of like lean into feedback. I always encourage people to volunteer for those, what I call stretch assignments, right? Things that are going to take you out of your comfort zone. See failure as data, not as your verdict.
Yes. Anything else?
Yes, community is fertile soil. This is what I love about Shine, is what I love about several other organizations that I have been personally involved in is women grow faster together. I think we know that. Women are notorious for exchanging strategies. Women are not scared to share their scars. We learn to normalize struggle. So, isolation only magnifies hardship,
Mm.
community multiplies growth. So, it's great that we have mentorship circles, accountability partners, honest professional friendships. Definitely, I think this is one of the most valuable of all my bullet points.
100%. And we know that as we've built the Shine Circle, but there's been most women can think back over their career or their life and remember connections that they made that were really powerful, that helped them transform, that helped them evolve and grow into the person that they are now. And so, yes, doing that alone is not only are you not maybe moving as fast as you could, but it's also very boring. And that feeling of loneliness, do I have to figure everything out by myself? you
Right.
know
And like
so
I
I
said,
love that.
isolation will only magnify the hardship. So, I always definitely encourage people get into some strong groups of some strong women. Um,
Yes. And what's the final step?
The final step is turn pain into purpose. That's where it gets really powerful. I always encourage people, like, think about the thing that almost broke you. We all have those moments. It often becomes the place that you're gonna lead from most effectively. Your hardest season may become your greatest credibility. So, some examples of that are like the woman who has struggled with burnout now teaches boundaries. The woman who survived toxic leadership now builds healthy teams. The woman who had to rebuild her confidence now mentors others. Your growth process becomes your leadership style. So, uh, where can you lead because you lived it? Growth becomes legacy when it's shared.
Absolutely. And I think when you talk about this, it really leads me to ask the question, there's so much healing in that process that's necessary and becomes part of, maybe your new message. That healing can be complicated, but what would be one thing that you would give the audience that you would recommend for beginning that healing process? Because sometimes we're just so hurt that it feels like the most difficult thing ever just to take the smallest first step. What would you say that step would be?
I think it's different for everyone, first of all, but I do think that
Mm,
the deeper issue isn't about strategy or structure or even talent, it's really self-awareness. Most leaders are trying to build something externally without first doing that internal work. Culture will always mirror the leader. So
mm,
if the leader is operating out of fear or pressure or the need to control, that's exactly what shows up in the culture. So no matter how great the mission statement sounds, you'll see that the culture is kind of crumbling. What I've seen over and over again is that leaders unintentionally create environments where people don't feel safe to be honest, to take risk, or to bring their full selves to the table. Without the sense of trust and psychological safety, you don't get a thriving culture. All you get is compliance. And
mm.
compliance can look good for a little while, but it doesn't lead to innovation or ownership or long term success.
And
So,
it doesn't feel good.
so for me, the real work of leadership is inward. It's asking, how am I showing up? What am I modeling? Am I creating a space where people feel seen and valued and safe enough to grow? Am I creating a space that I would want to be, not the leader, but on the team? And because when you get that right, when people feel genuinely supported and believed in, they don't just perform, they start to invest. And
Mm.
that's when your culture shifts from something you're trying to manage into something that naturally strengthens and sustains itself. So culture doesn't come from what you say as a leader, it comes from really who you are, and you have to know that.
Mhm. And so you've had so many different experiences as a leader and in different environments and cultures. What would you say from your perspective and your experience is like the deeper issue that leaders are facing that maybe they're not recognizing in order to build a healthy and thriving culture within their organization?
Um, well, I think it just comes back to, again, Jennifer, just it's that knowing yourself, knowing that to move from performing as a leader to being real as a leader is important. So many leaders, again, feel like they have to have it all together. Like I
Mm,
was saying in the beginning, I felt like I had to hide it and show up every day strong and all together when I was a mess and I wasn't being authentic, wasn't being myself. Leaders think that their role is to have the answers and to stay
mm,
composed and to push through. But what that actually is doing is creating distance.
mm,
People don't connect with perfection, they actually connect with authenticity. And that's what I had to learn the hard way, but the good way because I've learned it, right? I got to the point where I realized all of these things that I'm telling you now are things that I learned in the moment that no one told me. So I'm glad that I'm able to share with others. This is where I got that idea of grow through what you go through. That's where it really came into play. Leaders are going through so much, from pressure to uncertainty to challenges. But when they hide that, they miss the opportunity to model growth in real time. I'm not saying that leaders should overshare, and I'm not saying that they should always make it all about them, but there is power in being able to say to your team that I'm struggling right now. I'm working through some things. Here's what I'm learning, because that kind of transparency gives others permission to do the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, there's this fear of vulnerability, right? It's not something that we're raised in the corporate environment
Right.
to.
Exactly.
And so what could be one shift that leaders could step into that could help them deal with that? Like, I'm afraid, I'm a little bit fearful of being who I actually am or exposing how I really feel.
I would say honesty with self first before you can be honest with team. But realizing that you do have boundaries and limitations, and you are human. You were chosen for your position in the first place because of who you are. So, obviously, there's something great and wonderful, magnificent about you. When you start to become real with people and authentic with people and vulnerable with people, like I said, something shifts and the culture becomes much more human, more open, more resilient, because now you're not just asking people to grow, you're showing them how to grow. And it's just like a kid. We can tell a child to do something, but when we show them how to do it, they're much more apt to understand what we're asking them to do and to be able to follow. So it's the same concept here when we show people that, yes, I'm facing some pretty crummy times right now, and it's hard, and I am not at my best. Forgive me for that, but let's watch how I'm going to grow through this. Let's watch how I'm going to shift. And again, going back to what you said and I said in the very beginning, it's all about the mindset. You know, if I choose to then grow through this, if I choose to say that I'm not going to let this inhibit me, but I'm going to let it take me further and change who I am as a leader and show up in a positive way, then I've done my job. That's where real trust is built. That's where people lean in and they don't pull back from you.
Yeah, there was a quote that you shared with me. I think it was from Henry Ford.
Yes.
What is that?
It is the quote. I'm gonna mess it all up because I usually read this aloud, but it has something to do with whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Mm,
I've told every team that I've worked with forever, I've told them that. We're gonna get in our own way if we think that we can. So let's get out of our way. Let's know that we can do great things and let's go do them, because
yeah.
mindset gets in the way every time. People don't need a perfect leader. They don't need someone who's always got all the right answers. They just need a real one who's willing to grow right in front of them and show them that it's okay to make mistakes and be human.
I just am thinking about the leaders and the mentors that I've had over my career and the ones that showed up and was like, last week I messed up,
Yeah,
those are the ones, you're right, you connect with them more and you look to them more often because you can trust,
right,
right? The trust is so key when you're leading because we know that nobody is perfect and we know that
right.
the facades that people wear are not real. So it's almost like we're always trying to peek behind a curtain that's solid shut and it
Yep.
becomes just a lack of trust there. Do you have examples that maybe it's where you shared your own vulnerability or where another leader did what you're talking about and what the result was?
Definitely with myself, I shared several bullet points with this audience and with you today, basically of the hardships I've had to overcome. I guess in my role, one of my roles, most recent, I started out realizing that the campus I was sent to lead had a horrible mindset about themselves. They were one
Mm,
of those schools that was kind of a turnaround situation where they weren't doing so well, and they had this mindset of, "Oh, it's just us." We're not really ever going to be the big school. We're not ever really going to be the successful school. We're not ever going to win the awards in the corporate world. We're not ever going to be known or seen. And I said, wait, stop. I didn't come to lead that school. Instead of saying we're just this school, we are just this school and we're going to be a great just this school, right? I don't want to say their names. I shared with them some of my stories. I said, I could say I'm just this. I'm just the girl who was scarred. I'm just the girl who was wounded. I'm just that. Or I could say, I did face those things. I was wounded. I was scarred. I went through the things I went through. But I'm sitting here telling you right now that that's not who I am. Those are things I can definitely say I'm glad that I actually own those scars because it helps me now see that doesn't have to get in my way. That's not at all where I stop. That's not my final image, right? It's up to me to change my mindset and say, okay, those things happen and bummer. It was terrible and they sucked. They really did. But there was a reason that I was able to say, I want to use those things. I want to use the hardships and the difficulties and the challenges so that I can turn it around and convince other people that, hey, you got to change your mindset around it and keep moving forward. What is the difficulty? What is it revealing? What could it be building?
Mm,
How will it serve me later? And those are
mm,
hard questions to ask in the really painful moments when somebody's
mm.
just facing those difficulties. But at the same time, if you can embed those questions in their mindset, they'll be there, right? It's like planting a seed. Those questions will be there when somebody gets ready to answer them.
Yes. I absolutely love that. And I think that when I think of you, so when we met, I had the opportunity to have a little bit of a peek into how you lead your team.
Mhm.
And I saw you as such a compassionate leader. And I think the conversation that we've had today up until now is really applicable to all leaders, both male and female. Shifting the conversation a little bit to female leaders, I think sometimes as women, we do have this sort of desire to be more compassionate and have a little more empathy as we lead. And sometimes it causes us to take on a little more than we should. And from our conversations, I know that you had a little bit of this experience as well. How can female leaders really be conscious of this? It's a strength of theirs to be a compassionate leader. And we also get to have boundaries around it. So, how can women leaders create these boundaries so that they're not burning out?
Sure. Yeah, you're right. It is a strength. I consider it a strength, but I also, and every time I ever asked by someone, what's your greatest strength and what's your greatest weakness? I said, it's the same. I have this ruinous empathy, if you've ever read that book, that it is something that is great as a leader, but to be able to lead my people with my heart and want to know them and want to go through their lives with them and want to share my life so they go through it with me and kind of support each other and lean on each other, that's a great way to be. However, it can get in the way sometimes of that direct feedback. It can get in the way of people not knowing their limitations and boundaries, and it can sometimes make it feel as if you're being taken advantage of because now they know, "Oh, her heart's all in it, so if I tell her this story and I really need some help, she'll take it easy on me or she'll jump in and help me," which is that was all me. And I think that's what you're referring to is I was the kind of person that if somebody was going through something hard in their life and I wanted to make it better, I just took on their job. I had my own job, but I was taking on their job to try to make their lives easier, and it did burn me out. And so what I had to learn from that is that kind of next step rule that in order to grow as a leader, which every team needs you to continue to grow as a leader. You're not there yet. No one ever is. They need you to grow. You're not required to see the whole staircase ahead. You're just
Mm,
needing to take the next right step. And the next right step sometimes isn't the step that's natural for you to step on to. I don't know if you've ever watched a child learning to climb up and down stairs, and there some of them are taking the double steps, but they put their one foot down, put the other one down, or sometimes as they master the steps, they skip steps. I think a lot of times as leaders, we have to learn that there are steps that we're gonna have to take it really slow and gentle and ease down and up. And then there's also steps that sometimes we have to skip around things, and knowing the difference, knowing your team, knowing your people enough to know when you're needed to do what. Do you need to be pulling them up the stairs with you? Do you need to be on the steps and skip a few and just forget some things and fill it in later? Just knowing your team. And again, it all comes back to mindset. Do we believe we can be amazing and fabulous and phenomenal? If we believe we can, we will, right? That whole build it and they will come concept. If you believe that, it will happen. And then just holding on to each other, embracing each other in what life is presenting to all of us as you go through things, life with your team, and realizing what does each person need. And I would tell my team, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to support you, but I need you to take care of me and be there for me and support me as well. And I think you met my team, and we had that. We definitely had that opportunity where we loved each other. And that wasn't a bad word. In our company, that was not a word that we shied away from at all. We loved each other and we knew deep down what we meant to each other. So I think
Mm.
yeah.
I love the analogy that you use of the staircase. And that's where I see community being so important that you talked about, because
Mhm.
when you're deciding, well, what is the next step in my growth as a leader? And then how can I apply this to my team? Like you said, it's not always linear and it doesn't always make sense analytically that what the
Right.
next step is. And having community to really feel through some of those and navigate it is so powerful and important, because
Mhm.
there's so many people that have experienced what you're experienced in slightly different ways, and they can be such a support and a help in navigating those unknown waters.
Having people like the first thing you have to do a lot of times is to get people to admit. Again, people don't ever want to admit their difficulties, but when they can admit a difficult professional season or a personal season even that they're experiencing, and then to get them to say, "Okay, it was difficult, it's hard, but what is one skill it has forced you to develop?"
Mm.
Right? Because it will. And what is one strength you discovered about yourself in the process of healing? When they can think about it in that way, okay, it was difficult. It forced me to develop these skills. I've developed some strengths throughout all of it. And then ask them the question, if that season had not happened, would you have developed those same strengths?
Mm.
And usually the answer is probably not. Or I probably would have, but it would have taken a lot more time, right? It's awful for me to sit here and say, be thankful for challenges and be thankful for struggles and difficulties. But that's the only way that I think we're going to get to where we can be those true model exemplary leaders that are building the team that's resilient and that building the team that's vulnerable and honest and solid.
Mm. Yes, because resilience cannot be built on a faulty foundation. And I think what you're
Absolutely.
talking about is really healing and building that foundation so that the other layers come more natural and you can bounce back from the minor things that come along.
Right. Yes.
Oh, well, thank you, Cindy, so much. Is there anything else you want to share quickly with the audience before we
There's another
finish?
little analogy I like to share. It's you don't get to choose your seasons, right? You don't get to choose the good and the bad, the warm and the cold, the pretty and the ugly, but you do get to choose what you wear during that season and who you become in it. When we think about the seasons of weather, we select our clothing, we select our shoes, we select our handbags dependent on the seasons, right? But we can also choose how we present ourselves in the seasons of life. And I recommend, this is really silly, but I recommend a smile in every season. The type that you can like see it in your eyes kind of smile. But this is a smile that basically says, the storms are not my identity. The
Mm,
strength I've built inside the storms is who I am. So the storm is temporary and the strength that you build in it is permanent. Last final word here is that you're just making sure you know that you're not defined by your difficulty, but you're defined by the development.
a smile has been so transformational for me from others.
Right.
Those moments where you are hiding and you walk into a grocery store and you just want to be crying, but you have to
Yeah.
buy dinner for your family. And to
Right.
have a worker or someone just smile, not say a word, it is so powerful in those moments. So I love that you share that. Well, tell the audience how you would love for them to connect with you. I will put your website up on the screen.
Yeah, my website is DIY, is the WHY kind of Y, because that is the balance of work, home, and you. So DIY DFW, because I'm in the Dallas Fort Worth area.com. So again, DIWHY DFW.com.
Awesome. And you're working with leaders and people within organizations, right? To just help with this balance of life and work and leadership.
Yes, it's a full service industry where I'm actually helping people individually, independently in their homes, as well as coaching other leaders with leadership skills, making sure that no matter what, we're leaving people with the message of, you're not alone, you are not stuck, you are becoming. I love to leave people with that note of, you are becoming.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me. I just always love seeing your posts and what you share. And I just love that we were able to connect a few years ago and hopefully we stay connected. Well, if this conversation resonated with you on a personal level, I would love for you to connect with Cindi on LinkedIn or check out her website that we shared. We'll put those all in the show notes. And if you desire to be a part of a thriving community that will hold you accountable for the kinds of inner work that's foundational to your professional success, the kind of work that Cindi talked about today, the Shine Circle is such a beautiful place to do that for women who are within a corporate environment or who are exiting a corporate environment and wanting to build something separate and on your own. But the bottom line is that thriving cultures don't start with better perks and policies. They start with leaders who are willing to grow and heal and lead from a place of wholeness and joy. And that is the Shine Leadership Advantage. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.